Greetings, welcome to Jezreel Blessed Ministry. I'm Hannah, and today, just a word of encouragement. I would just like to read out what the Lord told me to write, and later we'll just go in depth a little bit about Joseph. So, let me read about this message that God has given me for someone out there who needs an encouragement and upliftment from all the discouragement of undergoing this process. So I know many of y'all have been going through a rough time where it's very tempting to give up. But the Lord has sent me here to encourage someone out there who needs that push to move into all that God has for you. So God is saying that take one step at a time and watch me move. Have a mind of possibilities. Be desperate for my manifestation. You will be happy again. My words will not fall to the ground. Challenges are meant to shape you and not to shut you down. All things are possible for one who believes. You are capable to handle whatever is coming your way. I've tested you and your faith in me and my word. I'm working on your confidence. Get your hopes high. Get your passions high. Something is about to happen really big for you. Don't doubt yourself. Your potential evokes your promotion. Don't dodge the process. There's greater things on the other side of your misery. My hand will propel you forward as you step out in faith. Obedience and faith is a lifestyle of walking into destiny. Man's help is limited. My help for you is unlimited. The pain that you're experiencing can't compare to the joy that is going to hit your life. I will make your life as a testament to the nations. Ignore those insults. I will move you out with my hand. I will sustain you. Your days of mourning is over. You will leave a legacy behind. Do not use people as a crutch. Cling unto me. My hands are stronger. I will make you as an impact to the generation. Man-made choices will take you to a certain height, but my choice for you and for your life will go beyond your expectation. The rejection is a redirection for a re-establishment. So the re-establishment, that word establishment, is here to put in place again, to reinstate or to restore back, or basically to renew it. So when I got this message, this download from the Lord, immediately God inspired me to read the story of Joseph. As I was reading for some time, I didn't plan to release this video, but I felt that God was redirecting me to do this video to release now. I wanted to take it in more depth. I wanted to share more depth concerning about Joseph's story. Probably God wanted me to release right now, so I'll just go in the flow. See, like Joseph, he had this process. He has to endure much. Before we go into that, yes, I forgot. Whatever you're going through right now, this process, I know it's been tiresome of waiting on certain things that God has told you. Probably you have not been hoping on anything, but because of your circumstances that is pressing on you, I don't know what are your circumstances. It could be financial area, it could be in making a decision where you have been oppressed by people around you to make certain decisions concerning your life altering decisions. But one thing for sure is that God will not rush us into making decisions in life. People's timeline doesn't cooperate with God's timeline for our lives. God's timing is different than our timing. There are times we may be patient, but the people around us may push us into something that we don't want to. But God is empowering you to make that firm decision, to stay put, or to take alternative decision making with Him. Whichever God leads you, God is empowering you to be steadfast and to not compromise. Although you have been tested in many areas of life, the battles have become so weary for you. You became so battle weary. But the Lord has everything in control. So this word I've written quite some time back. I think it was last year. God wanted me to release this word, this short message. I've written it. I don't know which message was this. It's from Reverend Lucy Natasha. I've been following her ministry quite some time, for many years back. So I love this phrase that she has mentioned in a sermon, and God has highlighted me to release this. It says, don't worry about the battles you're going through. Your battles reveals your mental. Your mental means the anointing. What are you anointed for? Many times we have been going through a lot of battles. Definitely God would have revealed to you deeper about considering your lives, your circumstances, from the background that you came. That God has empowered you, He's anointing you to go through certain battles, that He wants to use you in the time to come to be a deliverer of the family, for per se, maybe a deliverer for the family, or maybe to be a first person, a trailblazer for a certain aspect in your life. So this word, it refers to, don't worry about the battles you're going through. Your battles reveals your mental or the anointing. What you carry determines your warfare. The bigger the battle, the bigger the testimony. The bigger the challenges, the bigger the testimonies. Before a testimony, the Lord takes you through a test. He doesn't take one test. Actually, He takes us to various testings of life. So you will have many tiny tests in every checkpoint, in every next level of your life. It could be very simple, but the test, if you fail, there will be a repeat test. So before a testimony, He takes you through a test. Before a breakthrough, He takes you through a breakdown. Before the miraculous, expect the ridiculous. Before a triumph, before victory, you go through a trial. Before a restoration, you go through a devastation. Before a laughter, you go through a lamentation. Hallelujah. So through all these challenges that we all go through, this process is not to kill us or push us down into the pit. Though it seems like you are hidden for a season or for some years long now. But if you take a deep look into the life of Joseph was tending to sheep at the age of 17. He was a young, handsome looking boy. He was tending to sheep. Though he was most loved by his father, he was a favorite son of his father Jacob. But he was also being hated by his siblings, his brothers, his half brothers. He was not his full brothers, his half brothers. So although he was most favorite child, but he was not living up to his potential, though he was tending to the sheep and so on, because his family thought, okay, that was his best position. But the Lord, even though his father thought he was great in tending to the sheep, but being chosen at such a young age, Joseph didn't see him as a chosen person at that time. But God has long time predetermined him that He's going to raise him up as a president of Egypt, or as a prime minister of Egypt. But it didn't happen overnight for Joseph. Joseph had to go through series of trials. Joseph was a young boy where he was behaving very immature, where he eventually provoked jealousy among the siblings, and also he angered his father when the time he shared about his dreams, the visions that he had received from the Lord. He didn't know how to preserve that dreams and visions God gave him. He told it like a childish way. He shared it to his family members, to his siblings, and that caused jealousy. Not enough always being uttering that he was the most loved child, the favorite child of his father, and he was given a special robe to wear. That have actually angered and caused jealousy, has evoked jealousy among the siblings, when he kept on talking about the way he spoke about the visions God showed about how his siblings will bow to him and so on, and what are the great things that God is going to do to his life in the future. And Joseph didn't know. He was so excited that God is going to do something great for his life. That is what he thought. But he didn't know the next minute God revealed such beautiful visions about his life. It's going to take him to a process of enduring pain, rejection. He has always been rejected from his siblings. So God gave him a portion of being loved by his father, as well being rejected by his siblings, hated the most. He always tried to fit in. He tried to tag along with his brothers, but his half brothers, always pushed him aside. Maybe maybe any of you who is watching this, maybe you're going through this time of being rejected by close ones. You feel that you tried many times to be fitting in a place, trying to push yourself into building a relationship with some people. It didn't seem to work out. You feel that you're constantly being misunderstood, and you always tend to have this perception of you that something is wrong about me. From young time, I have something about me that's different. I don't seem to get along. I don't mean harm to my family, but I don't seem to get along with them. Even I do try to compromise. But you see, this little boy, Joseph, he was also going through that jealousy, the hatred, although he was a favorite child of the father. But even though he was a favorite child, there was one point where Jacob, his father, also was angry with him. You know, there's a thing where I love about this. The family had a plan for Joseph. The family had an idea that Joseph only could just take this area of tending the sheep. He was good at tending the sheep. He was very responsible guy. He used to do this thing diligently. But God has greater plans for Joseph. Joseph was a faithful child. He did all he could. He was a daydreamer as well. But through it all, God was processing Joseph's character. Without Joseph realized that he was very young, but God has great destiny for him to fulfill. And God had to allow, even though the enemy used the brothers in the form of jealousy attack, and Joseph was so young to he didn't know how to handle this jealousy attacks. He doesn't know how to maneuver this. And God has an appointed time. During that time where he had his father sent him, we all know the story. The father sent him to watch over the brothers, and he used to report back then about his brothers are doing something and so on. So when the brothers saw him coming over there, they already plot to kill him, to just end him. They couldn't take it. The jealousy was too much. It's an outburst. Because they kept the jealousy. They didn't let God to deal with the jealousy. Jealousy is very dangerous. But even though you're going through the jealousy attack, I believe God has given you the wisdom moves. Because Joseph was young in that time, those jealousy attacks took a different turn for Joseph, where he was thrown into the pit. When he was thrown into the pit, I believe when Joseph was in the pit, already he was facing all kinds of rejection, hatred from the family members. When he was thrown into the pit, if you try to picture yourself thrown into the pit, you don't have water. There was no water inside the system, that pit. There was no water. It was pitch dark. Joseph would have thought that my life has ended over here. He didn't know what was next step. He had his brother Reuben that wanted to save him and silently and send him back to Jacob, his father. But by the time he came, he was already thrown and he was sold off to the Ishmaelite traders. When Reuben came and he just tore his robe and he cried, he wept then, thinking that what he's going to answer. You see, he didn't even think about Joseph, what is happening to Joseph, what Joseph would have felt. But there again, his siblings only thought about what answer they could have give to his father. But through it all, feeling betrayed by the family as he was being transported into Egypt, he was sold into slavery by the Ishmaelite traders. When he was sold into slavery, from there the Potiphar, the advisor of of this Pharaoh bought him and took him to the palace, and that's where his life began, his journey, where he was being trained. He was sold into slavery, and let me refresh. Yes, when Joseph was taken to Potiphar's house, and he was taken to the king, to Pharaoh. So that's how they took notice about Joseph's way of doing things. And that's where, because the favor of the Lord was always upon Joseph, even though he was being attacked by his family members in jealousy attack, although he was hated, he was thrown, he was sold off for slavery. Through it all, God was with Joseph. God didn't leave Joseph's side. Although this enemy meant evil for him, but Joseph, if Joseph didn't have to be sold into slavery, do you think Joseph would have left his family? Suppose he got an opportunity by someone. Okay, you have an opportunity to be a prime minister in Egypt. Do you think that Joseph would have left his family, the familiar background, the familiar ground? Do you think that he would have left? I don't think so he would have left, because he was comfortable. Because most importantly, he was very close to his father. Although his siblings hated, he still loved them. He was still wanting to be part of them, although they didn't want him. But God had a way of transporting him out from his background, because when God showed him this vision of him being someone great in the future, his greatness, God wanted to preserve it. He wanted to process his character. He needed to prepare him for the promise that God has given him. God has to let him endure those difficult times. So in the pit, this word, while I was reading the story for the whole chapters from chapter 37 onwards, God gave me this word excavate. Excavate is like where the archaeologists will do excavation, where they do deep digging of the ground. So this process is a very messy process. It's a deep digging. So I'm not talking this excavation came because I read about he's in a pit. But this word excavation, God was telling, God is doing an excavation. God did an excavation in the life of Joseph, in the terms of his character. God has studied his generation past. Those things that has been repeatedly in his generation back then, where his, I think his grandfather, Isaac, he was deceived by his wife. He was deceived by his wife into blessing his younger son, which is Jacob. Jacob is Joseph's father. So during that time, there was already have disorder. There were also parental favoritism, and that can be seen clearly in the life of Joseph, where Jacob and Rebekah, Rebekah was playing favoritism among two sons. She had two sons, Esau and Isaac. Right? Yes, Rebekah had two sons, Esau and Jacob. But Isaac, I'm a little confused now. Okay. Though they had this background of being fallen into deception, being provoking with jealousy, favoritism, where it evokes jealousy among siblings. See, when there's parental favoritism, there's going to be problem. There's disorder there. And also where Isaac, the granddad of Joseph, he too was deceived. He was deceived by his younger son, and that's what I said. So he was deceived. And where Jacob stole the elder brother's birthright, stole his blessing. Basically, he stole his blessing, where he impersonated as the older brother Esau, and that's how he angered his brother Esau, and so many things happened then. Jacob was tricked, deceived by the uncle. See, what he sowed, he reaped it back. See, Jacob, what he did to his brother, he deceived him by getting the blessing of his father before Isaac passed away. Jacob, in fact, when he wanted to marry Rachel, he was tricked by his own uncle, Laban. Though he was a very diligent worker and so on, but still yet he was kept as enslaved. He was enslaved by his own uncle to work harder to marry Rachel. And you see that the same trait pattern that happened in Joseph's life. But in Joseph's life there's a turnaround. What happened in his generation back then, in his grandfather's life and his father's life, in his life it did have an effect. It did repeat in the form of jealousy, parental favoritism and so on. It did repeat, but God had a plan where he wanted to use Joseph to end that. He wanted to use Joseph to change the trajectory of his whole family, his generation. And Joseph had to pay the price to go through that process. That process, it took long years. You know, he was 17 years old when he was tending to ships. And at the age of 30, he was appointed as a prime minister. You know, and he got married and so on. But one thing good about the process is when he was thrown in the pit and he was taken as a slave to the palace. And later on, when he was taken to a palace, God's favor showed up. God's favor was ever present in his life. Though the family didn't acknowledge, but his father knew there's something about the dream, but he didn't know exactly what is it. But although the family didn't recognize that, people around, the strangers, you see, one thing happened is that God needed to take him out from that place of comfort, the familiarity that breeds contempt. God had to transport him into an unknown territory where God has predestined him to be ruler, to be in place of position before anyone had knew. Even Joseph didn't know the whole picture of it. He just got a glimpse of his future, and that just ended into more problem for him. But during each stage of his life, Joseph had a process of growth. During the trials that he was going through, he had a growing process. He had to endure tough times to grow. And those times was not easy for him. He had to go through humiliation. He has to go through being separated from his familiar background and transported to unknown territory. He was a Hebrew boy, and thrown into slavery into Egypt. You know, the customs are all so different. He's very new to it. He was not prepared for it. Though he was not prepared, but God allowed him to go through when he was in the place of familiar. God prepared him ever since then. Although he didn't know, the jealousy was a preparation, the hatred from the family was a preparation into his process of greatness, into walking his greatest time of his life. And he was entrusted many great positions, you know, because God favored him. And wherever he stepped into, especially when he stepped into Potiphar's house, there were blessing flowing. God blessed that house because Joseph was there, for the sake of Joseph. And God gave him power, he gave him so many things. But yet, there was another testing came. He was tested in the place of sexual temptation by Potiphar's wife himself. False allegations against him. And there he was thrown into the prison. From the pit to Potiphar's house, and from Potiphar's house, false allegation into prison. From prison, there his dream. God blessed him with a gift of dream interpretation. But yet, during that process, Joseph, there was a humbling process. It was a humbling process where Joseph declared openly that only God can interpret dreams. And yet he told him, "Go ahead, tell the dreams." God gave him the wisdom of interpreting dreams. He had a clear relationship with the Lord. See, he was dependent with his family background. He was dependent on his father, his siblings, and so on. But when he went out, when God had to transport him, he was not just where God announced where he was going to go. He didn't know. But I believe Joseph trusted the Lord. There was a deep intimacy was built there because he had no one but except God. He didn't get angry with God. He had a good rapport with God. That was his plus point for Joseph. And when he stepped into that place and he started interpreting the dream and so on, and there again he expected this too, the cupbearers the chief cupbearer and another guy who was the chief cupbearer to send a message to Potiphar to release him, to take him out from the prison. But yet he was overlooked and was forgotten for good. I think almost 2 years later, he was waiting and so on. Even in the prison when he was locked there, God gave him favor. God favored him wherever he was. God put him in charge in the prison as well. And even that time as well, when he interpreted dream and he so on, he thought, okay, that's it, my life is going to be. All of a sudden, the officials were sent to get Joseph, because the cupbearers remembered, and he told, because when the Pharaoh had a dream and he needed someone to interpret, but he couldn't find anyone, and those people who Joseph interpreted the dreams told to the Pharaoh, told to Pharaoh that there's a guy in the prison who interpreted our dreams. And that's when immediately they sent the officials to get Joseph to the palace. And Joseph came immediately. It was sudden. It was a sudden intervention where God... See, it seems like very long for Joseph, but no one knew what was running in Joseph's mind. I believe Joseph would have thought, my life is going to be like this. He would have underwent bitterness and anger and rage and so on. He would have been pondering about how his family betrayed him. But God was still there working in his heart. Those pit challenges, those prison challenges, the false allegation, the sold to slavery, had taught him certain things of humbling himself, breaking off the pride, were also teaching him how to act accordingly, to keep things to himself, not to release beforehand. So in that process, God was preparing him to take him to Pharaoh. And when he interpreted the dream and so on, moving on to, he was given full responsibility. Pharaoh entrusted everything on him and also made him the second high rank person in Egypt. He was given authority over everything, the administration, everything in Egypt. But it didn't come easy for Joseph. If Joseph was just taken to that place, I'm sure he would have just squandered his opportunity. But because he went through that stages of life, God tested him every stage. God had to use the pain, the betrayal, to mold his character, to mold and shape his heart, to get a right posture of his heart. And that's when God promoted him as a president, as a prime minister of Egypt, because God has known that a time of famine will come, the land of Egypt, the land of Israel. And that's when his family came. His own family couldn't recognize Joseph, but Joseph recognized his family member, and that's where the plot twist comes. Even though he was battling with anger, I believe Joseph had all kinds of emotion. It was mixed emotions at that time when he saw his family members coming, his brothers who had thrown him to slavery. He lost his years of being bonded with his father. It's been 15 over years. He was thrown into slavery, and he was got into position, but yet he yearned his place of origin. But even though that time he was appointed and he got married to Pharaoh's daughter, Asenath, and he had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And when Ephraim and Manasseh came, he said, God has given him this blessing. I'm just paraphrasing it. Gave him this blessing to forget the pain and forget the father's family side. To forget all of his past, God gave him these blessings, these two sons. And when these people came and stood, God was testing Joseph's heart as well. Despite that, every single thing that he had endured, Joseph, long story short, Joseph embraced his family with forgiveness. He didn't hold back onto his bitterness. And that all came into the process where God was processing his heart, his character, to handle the greatness that God wanted to use to bless him and the nation. So greatness takes time. The process of being great, it does take time. It does take to pay the price. So I don't know what are the process you're going through, but the Lord is affirming you and me as well. The promise still stands. He's a promise-keeping God. When He shows you a vision, when He says a word concerning your life, it's not just for us, but it's for many generations. The generation out there that is waiting on us. Though God wants to bless you and your family and to enlarge your territory, God also has the idea of using you as a blessing for someone out there. God used Joseph's pain in being a leader and transformed him into being a leader, to be a provider during the time of famine. He was not only a provider over there, he knew how to manage the resources entrusted by Pharaoh. He knew how to run the agriculture side. He knew how to run business. And that's how God is going to use each one of us according to His plans and purpose. God's plans and purpose oftentimes comes with painful experiences. But those painful times, those times where you misunderstood and false allegation falls, God is processing us. I know it's painful, but we need to go through that hard lessons so that God is maturing us to handle greater things in life. And not just to handle it, to be a good steward of all the things that's going to entrust us. Because those painful circumstances, those painful experiences you go through is going to birth the process. I believe Joseph didn't know that God has great plan to put him in a place of position. He only knew that his brothers are going to bow down to him and so on. He didn't know that he's going to be a prime minister in Egypt, a foreign land. And despite all that, God blessed him and his descendants. In fact, God gave him authority over there and he gained favor from Pharaoh. Also, he brought his father and his family members all he brought to Egypt, gave the land of Goshen, a part of land in Egypt, and also gave the livestock. So God has already preordained that God has chosen Joseph right at a tender age, that he has to go through the pathway so that he will be a deliverer for the family. He will be the first person, a trailblazer. Many years, this family of Jacob, back then in their ancestors, they were just tending to sheep. And also, I believe Joseph also would have thought, I'm going to be tending the sheep for the rest of my life. But the tending the sheep was not a waste of time. God was testing his patience. God was testing and building his capacity of handling, handling this little task that God has given. But though it seemed like tiring for him to just go and tend the sheep, but he was faithful in that. Though he had a lot of things, a lot of painful experiences from his family members, but that didn't stop Joseph from tending to the sheep. Joseph was chosen by God. He was sealed right before anyone knew. Even his family member didn't know. God used Joseph to sever those old trade pattern, old way of doing things. God set him apart from the family. He didn't have this kind of thing there. He rest of life was tending the sheep. God saw greatness in him. God has deposited a seed of greatness in Joseph so that he could change the trajectory of his family and a descendants that is coming. And he had been a blessing to Egyptians as well to Israelites during the time of famine. God has given him such wisdom. Wisdom is birthed through the painful process. Those missteps Joseph had, those times where, God honored the times when he flee from the temptation, but he didn't understand why he had to go through that time of being in the prison. In that prison time also God processed him, and also God made him to walk in his calling. Though it was not his main calling, the gifting was operated there. His gift made room. So basically our gifting that God has given each one of us, it may seem insignificant. Maybe you are good in talking, maybe you are good in counseling people, or just being plain a listener. Just being a listener will do great things. Nowadays there are not many listeners out there. When you're a listener, you're a great blessing to someone out there who needs a listener without judgment, without judging that person. So when Joseph operated in his gifting, that gifting, although he gave that service freely to the cupbearer, the cupbearer and also another assistant, but he didn't get immediate reply. He didn't get immediate escape out from the prison. God had to process him, what is going in his heart and so on. God needed to prepare his character, needed to prepare his mindset. God was severing actually his mindset, his character. He was getting him in order, because God knows his time of appointment in Pharaoh's palace. It's very near. Though it took more than 2 years, I think it's almost 2 years, he was in the prison, left alone, abandoned. He operated in his gift. He gave the right. He walked in his purpose, but being left. Maybe today you may be feeling people have dumped you. People have taken your service. Maybe you have used your gifting and blessed someone, but people have forgotten you, and that has kept you bitter. God is asking you to release your bitterness to him. Watch him bless that person, release them, because those pain was meant for your greatness. You are walking into your greatest season. Though those time of trials will not always be there. You may have other trials along the journey, but those painful journey will not be always your pathway. God has great plans for each one of us. So release those pain. Focus on the process. You may not know what God has kept great things for you. You may not know if you're going to ponder about the pain, you're going to ponder about disappointments, the betrayals. You may overlook the blessing. You may overlook what the plan God has for you. God will oftentimes reveal the bigger picture. At times He'll give you a glimpse of how your future would be. But He will never ever show you the process that you have to go through. Because if God has shown you the process that you're going to endure, you would have said, God, I'd rather be where I am. Because if God would have showed Joseph that he has to go through this and that to get to the place of promotion, Joseph would have said, I'd rather be with my father, even my brothers, even they're showing jealousy and so on, I'd rather be with them. But God is, in the season, God impressed upon my heart. Many of us are going to walk into the place, we are walking through the journey of greatness. There will be a time where God will sever us from the place of familiarity. I don't care, maybe it's from your family or maybe your organization, your workplace or anything. Any separation will come with pain. But those separation, if it happens, it's for good. Because God needs to prepare the chosen one. The chosen ones are special because God needs you to be prepared, and He needs to separate you from the common trait patterns where you were. Because when the place where you're going, you can't take your past mindset. You can't take your character that you're operating in that familiar background. Because the things that God has for you and me are greater. He needs a different mindset. He needs a different character. He needs someone who is able to work along with the Lord, not someone who's being pushed around by people. Because if you see Joseph's life, Joseph was not a leader. Though he was tending to ships and so on, he was pushed around by his sibling, he was pushed around by his father. He didn't have his own stand. Because he was 17 years old, he was young, God needed him to go through that, to have a taste of being pushed around. I'm sure you have gone through being tossed around, being instructed here and there. But that was also a process for Joseph, taking instruction from his elders. Though he was always looked down, he was also pushed aside. But in all that, Joseph was faithful doing that. And that has led him to a place of promotion. Because Joseph never let go of God's hand when he was excavated, from the pit, when he was excavated, God did an unearthing, when God was removing every old mindset, the heart condition, he was reassessing over and over, until God tested every junction of Joseph's turns. God didn't promote him. God had every point he had to check Joseph before he promoted him, because God was so desiring him to hold the position and not to just get the position, just waste it off. He needed to assess him stage by stage, so that he will be able to better handle the thing that God has given him. Because the thing that God has purpose for him was greater than the plans that his family thought for him. His family only thought he could be only a shepherd tending to sheep. But God's plans were greater. Hallelujah. So maybe you may feel that people around you look down on you. People around you that think maybe circumstances doesn't match with what God has told concerning your life. But we all know that God is a promise-keeping God. When He gives a word, it doesn't mean it's going to happen next minute. Next minute, maybe you will be getting into the process. No, remember, like younger days, maybe God has sent some prophets to minister to you. Take a time to ponder back. There are times you may have forgotten things that God has told concerning your life. But God's word never expires. At times God has taken me in the journey where He makes me to recollect. There are times some I can't remember, but there are significant things where I personally have encountered. I was thinking that was my own thought. But to think where I was, what I was doing that time, I didn't know how to, walk into my gifting and so on. I didn't know anything about that. I wish I could have known. I wish I had someone to assist me. But even though I didn't know anything sort of like that, I had my own plans. But God had a plan and purpose. He had a way of initiating the process. Though the process was not to my desire, but we had to go through, because God has a way of dealing with our heart. He has a way to, put us in a situation where we will surrender to His plan. He doesn't force His plan, but He will tell us gently, lovingly. There will be opportunities for us to know and engage that this is the pathway for us. And that is what Joseph had endured. Because if Joseph was given an option to go to Egypt to be a prime minister, that wouldn't have happened. He would have taken it for granted. He would have acted with pride, just like how he acted when younger age. So this is the process that we have to endure. We have to endure. That is what God is saying to me. Grow through what you go through. That's the only way. There's no shortcuts to success. There's no shortcut to fulfilling destiny. You may have some mistakes. You may have so many testings where God will test you. If you have failed some test, God will bring back the test. But God is faithful to keep it, but it also depends on us cooperating with the Lord. So I believe God has been speaking to each one of y'all to endure what you have to go through. I know it's not easy, but always ponder about the story of Joseph, where it led him. If Joseph didn't cling unto the Lord, he was clinging unto the family. If he was not thrown into the pit and sold to the Ishmaelites, he wouldn't have fulfilled destiny. Even though that was his brother's jealousy, but God used everything around him for the betterment of Joseph's life and his generation and the society. Hallelujah. Those people that hated him had to come and bow down, finding God's word, promises, the visions fulfilled. All of Joseph's brothers fell on the ground and bowed before Joseph as a president, as a prime minister of Egypt. Though Joseph had a lot of heart issues, but one point he broke down, and when the time came, he revealed himself. When he revealed his identity, he didn't show any resentment. He told, whatever you intended for my harm, God used it for my good. God has a way in every of our turns, whether it's misturns, you have missteps. Many of us, we have been thinking about our missteps and we can't get over it. The wrong things that we have done wrongly, wrong decision making. There are times you get stuck thinking about it. Each one of us have had that stage. But I know God has been working in your hearts. He has been talking to you all. I believe during the time and prison time when he was in the prison, God has been ministering to the heart of Joseph. He has been unearthing in his heart, his mindset. Because the new thing that God was doing in his life needed a new self, a new mindset. A renewed mindset, basically. A renewed mindset. He needed a new humility. He needed a person who can contain the blessing and not to get the blessing above his head. And he needed to be, most importantly, be obedient to the Lord. Because one part Joseph told, he's a God-fearing man. He's a God-fearing man. Joseph was a God-fearing man. And that's the main key thing to gain success, is to gain success in obedience to the Lord. Our success is not same with the success of the worldly standard. Our main success is being obedient in times of things that God calls us, which is very uncomfortable. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. In the little thing, God will test us, whether we are obedient. There are times you have many voices around you. Even the closest ones may come and try to talk you out. But in that time, God tests us as well. Whether we are aligned to His Spirit, whether we want to obey Him, or whether we want to please people. God has to test Joseph in that area as well. Because if Joseph was a people pleaser, because Joseph, he didn't have his own stand when he was younger age. If he had grown as an adult in that same background, he would have been like that. He would have been a people pleaser. He would have been tossed around here and there like a football. He wouldn't have been a leader. But even that point of time, God knew that He has to divinely intervene to prepare him. Because God's appointed time, God knew the famine is going to take place. God had to prepare him, supersede the preparation mode. Although it took many years, but God's timing is perfect. His elevation is a breakthrough for his descendants. So may the Lord use you as a point of contact. He's not only a point of contact for breakthrough, but you got to be a blessing to many generations to come, and you got to leave a legacy behind for your generations to come. So you may have came from a family where they don't have anything special, and you may be talking yourself out from what God has promised you. Maybe the promise that God has given concerning your life is so intimidating. Maybe something God has revealed to you where you have so many years or days, sleepless night, considering that promise. You knew that God has more things for you. You knew that it's taking long time, and I don't want to compromise. God honors your steadfast love for Him. God honors your obedience to Him. There are times you wanted to give up, but the Lord is reminding you through me, do not give up. Go through what you need to go through now. Grow through. Do not despise that painful circumstances, because it is birthing the purpose. It seems like you're in a delivery room to birth that purpose. It seems like you need to get that purpose right out. But God has some things to deal. He's doing the things in His space. God is telling to each one of us to release your control, release your timing into His hand. He is working all things around for your good, for the good of your family. You may not understand what you're going through now is going to be a blessing. The things that He has for you is so great. Just take some time to ponder about the story of Joseph. Though I wanted to go more in depth, but I believe the Lord wanted to release this way. Maybe sometime I will do more in depth about Joseph, because this story is very close to my heart. There are things where we all have gone through where we can align with Joseph's story. There's nothing there's nothing something out of a topic. Each and everyone who have gone through some sort of betrayal, false accusations, delays, painful circumstances where we didn't even plan for it. But Joseph's story is an encouragement for each one of us. Those of us who feel like in a pit or in the place of process, in the process of walking into your greatness. You know that you are walking into a process of stepping to your time of promotion. Every level there's a promotion. And the time of stepping into your promotion, there's so much of chaos, so much of temptation to give up. Sometimes internally you feel like you're not good enough. Sometimes you're battling with low self-esteem. You feel intimidated. You feel you want to compare yourself to another. Comparison is a thief of joy, and that is how the enemy wants to rob us from our confidence. See, one more thing. Joseph was self-confidence. He had self-confidence. In the younger age, he was self-confident and so on. But something happened the time when he went through that rough time in his early age. He became a silent person. Silent, but he had confidence rooted in the Lord. He built a relationship with the Lord. He poured out his heart, because it's impossible to forgive someone though he had some resentment when he put a test to. God used Joseph to test his brothers. God used Joseph also to give some hard time for Joseph's brothers. So that was his time. See, when Joseph passed away, later on when Joseph passed away, leaving behind his brothers, while Joseph was there, the life was okay for the brothers. But Joseph died. When Joseph passed away, and there was another ruler came over there who doesn't know about Joseph's story. And there, the Israelites were being bullied and so on, were tortured. And there, Joseph's descendants were there. So what you sow, you will reap. Where Joseph have endured the pain. In fact, God initiated his family, Joseph's family, by Joseph getting them to Goshen, and where they stayed in the land of Egypt. His father and also his siblings all stayed there with their family members, all stayed there. So when Joseph passed away, these people have to go through their own process. So, but it's unlike the process that Joseph went through for his greatness. So always picture that there is a day for you. You will never always be in the pit. You will not always be accused, falsely accused. You will not be always overlooked. There is a time and season for everyone. So your season is coming soon. So God is saying to endure whatever you have to endure right now, because the time is coming for the great revealing. So He's doing the assessment of your heart and your character, so that you will contain. He doesn't want you to let go the things that He's going to bless you, because you are the promise. You are a solution provider for many people out there. So He needs to get you in right order before He releases you to the people, to the nations. So I would just like to release this. God bless you. I hope this was an encouragement and an upliftment for someone out there. Those process is not a waste of time. Those humiliation you go through by closest one, people may not understand it, but as long you are connected to the Lord, He will reveal everything that was hidden. There are times you cannot reveal certain things to your family. You can't reveal these things to your church members, your pastors. Sometimes you may be misunderstood, and you have this kind of thing. You need to prove them, but you can't do it because the Lord has shut your mouth. He has told you to be silent. Just endure it. God is with you. He is in this process of building you up. Your re-establishment time. He is re-establishing you. He has been severing you from your generation trait patterns for greater things, because those mindset will not belong. Doesn't belong to the place that you're going to. Those dysfunctional trait pattern doesn't take you the place of promotion. So He needs to sever that. He needs to process that. He needs to get you to a few trainings so that you will be better to handle the promotion. You'll be better to handle those upgrades in life. Many people don't know how to handle blessings. Even Hezekiah had blessings, wealth. He didn't know how to handle. That's for another video. I was supposed to do that, but this one got maybe released. Hezekiah, for a short thing. Hezekiah, he had wealth and so on. But what he did was, King Hezekiah, he went and revealed it to his opponents, his neighboring country kings. When he was ill, he went and showcased every single thing. He went open up and showed all the treasures that he had received from the Lord. And that's when he put himself into trouble. He allowed pride. See, pride does great thing. Pride is the greatest destruction for success. So it's very sad to see the life of Hezekiah. In fact, Hezekiah was, all okay during that time when he is leaving. But however, his son, when he took over, he has to go through. His descendants had to go through, pay the penalty. So you and I, God doesn't want it to happen. What happened in our past, God doesn't want it to repeat in our future. That is why He's being so diligent. He's being so precise with what He wants us to do. He's a good Father. He will not fail us. So trust Him with all that you do. Surrender. The place of surrender is where you see victory. Wholehearted surrender is what God is desiring. Even though you don't know whether you're going to receive a blessing or anything, but God is assessing. If I'm not giving you the place of promotion, will you love me? Will you surrender yourself? That is what God is seeing in each one of us. The wholehearted surrender, that is what God is looking. Undivided mindset. God rewards a due season. Because if you are acquainted with the blessing and not with the giver, you may receive the blessing and you may lose it the next minute. But when you are acquainted with the giver, and when you receive the blessing, and one fine day the blessing leaves you, or God asks for the blessing, your heart is all ready to release it. You will not have the attachment. You not cling on to the blessings, because you have the greatest blessing, that is God Himself. So God bless you. I just pray the strength of the Lord to be upon each one of y'all. May God give you greater in-depth revelation to hope on, to walk you through the process. May God give you a divine alignment and also focus during this process. May God fulfill every heart's desire and meet each and every needs for every season you're in. And I speak for divine supersede, for God to expedite His process, so that you can step into your divine time of upliftment. You'll not cry, you'll not moan anymore. So God bless you all.